Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be Moderation is for Cowards. I've got one email that I'm going to go through, and what we're going to talk about today is settling for a life that is less than you're capable of living. At one point, you should settle or agree or think, hey, you know what, let's just go ahead and be mediocre in this area of my life. Because that's basically where this email viewer is at. He's in his mid-40s, and he's kind of at that place where he's kind of frustrated. He wants to settle down. He wants to have a family, but it just hasn't found somebody that really whose goals and values are aligned. And I've got a couple of quotes. What actually inspired me for the title of this video was the movie. It's about Marcus Luttrell's story, Lone Survivor. You probably heard me talk about it in the past. I highly recommend his book, but it was also a great movie that's out in these past few weeks. Stars Mark Wahlberg. It tells the story of Operation Red Wing and how he was the only survivor, and it was like almost 20, 21, 22 Special Forces guys, most of them were SEALs, were killed in this operation. He was the only guy that survived. And so in the movie Lone Survivor, there was one of the younger guys who was still trying to fit in with everybody and kind of get respect, and his name was Shane Patton. And one of the things that he said, you probably saw part of this if you watched any of the previews for it, but that's where the inspiration came. I had two of my high school buddies that became Navy SEALs after we graduated, and one of them was killed over 20 years ago. He was just killed in a car accident. It was a crazy freak thing. He was with a bunch of his SEAL buddies, and I remember at the time, because we were only like 22, 23 years old when it happened, I was just shocked because he was one of the nicest, kindest, most humble guys I've ever met. And when I heard that he died, I was just stunned. I think he was the first guy in our class that passed away. But I'm going to read this quote from Shane Patton's character. And it says, "Been around the world twice, talked to everyone once. There ain't nothing I can't do. No sky too high, no sea too rough. Learned a lot of lessons in my life. Never shoot a large caliber man with a small caliber bullet. Anything in life worth doing is worth overdoing. Moderation is for cowards. I'm a lover, I'm a fighter, I'm a UDT Navy SEAL diver. I'll wine, dine, intertwine, and sneak out the back door when the refueling is done. So if you're feeling froggy, then you better jump, because this frogman's been there, done that, and going back for more. I'm a hard-boiled, hairy-chested, rootin', tootin', shootin', parachuting, demolition, double-cap crimpin' frogman." I just love the way SEALs think. I love the way they talk, and it's just what I love about SEALs in general is just they have the highest standards for themselves. And you've probably heard me talk a lot about in my videos over the past several years of having high standards for yourself, because when I was in high school, I was at a buddy's house, and his dad, or I should say his uncle, who he was living with, was a very successful, well-known eye doctor, and they lived in this multi-million-dollar mansion on the Intercoastal with all glass in the back, so you could just see all of the boats and stuff going by. It was a beautiful house. This guy was really kind, and he had his beautiful younger wife, and he was Indian. He had the turban on and everything, and his wife was this beautiful blonde hair, just sweet, friendly, kind woman. And it just made us feel like part of the family. It was myself, about 6 or 8 of my other buddies from high school were staying over that night, and there was a party that we had gone to that was down on the beach, and this was literally blocks away from Lauderdale by the Sea, down in South Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. It was one of my first great memories that I had from when I went to Cardinal Gibbons, which was a Catholic high school. And I remember just sitting there talking. I was looking around. It's like, because my parents, we lived in a blue-collar neighborhood, and I'd never been in a house like this. It was this big. And it's just like, for me, it was kind of like Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous type of thing. And what struck me about that, and talking to his uncle and getting to know his cousins and his aunt, was that these are like regular people. And internally inside, I thought, this guy ain't any smarter than me. It's like, I can do this. I can have something like this someday. And it's like, so when you spend time, it's like one of the things you probably heard me say is that I'm talking about a lot about your peer group, the quality of and I learned this from Tony Robbins, like the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of the people who you consistently spend your time with. And so when you're hanging out with other people, if you want to become better at anything in life, you want to hang out with people that are better in whatever area that you're maybe weak in or you want to improve in, so you can learn from them and model their success and then get the same results without having to go through all the things that they've had to go through and all the struggles that they've had to go through. And that's one of the reasons what I enjoy about what I teach is that somebody can watch this and watch a few videos of mine, read my book several times, a dozen or so times, and really in a short period of time, in a matter of months, completely change their life, not only in their personal lives, their dating life, but really every area of their lives. And so it's like, so that event happened, I was 16 at the time, and that completely changed my life from that point forward, because I never looked at the world the same way. I never looked at successful people or people that were wealthier than me and felt like they were somehow better. The way I looked at it was, they ain't got shit on me. I mean, I really thought that way internally, and I believed that way. And I knew that someday, some way, somehow, I was going to get to enjoy that kind of life and lifestyle. And even though that was, when I really looked at it, it was almost 16, 18 years after that event that I was actually in a place in my life where I had a great business. I was a millionaire. I had $1 million house on a lake. I had another $500,000 house. I had several cars. I had a $2.5 million office building with my partners. And we were grossing $6-7 million a year between all the different companies that we had between us. And I finally felt like, and I had a really great girlfriend that I was dating at the time. I was very happy. I was very in love. And I felt like I was living that life. I felt like I had everything that I had ever wanted and had set out to accomplish 16, 18 years before that. And the thing was, that took a long time. It was a long process to get there, through going through college, tending bar, waiting tables for that time, taking an unpaid construction internship, working for several construction companies, working for a real estate company for a year and a half. And when I look at the journey, it was a long process to get there. And so any area of your life, whether it's getting in shape or it's improving your social life or improving the peer group that you spend your time with, or getting to a place where you feel like you have the career that you've always dreamed of, that you've wanted, or having the kind of business that you've always wanted and dreamed of having, it is a long fucking process. And success doesn't come all at once. It's not like you wake up on Christmas morning, you have everything that you want, all the people that are in your life that you want, you have the business you want to create. It doesn't work that way. It's a type of thing that you've got to figure out first what it is that you want, why you want it. You got to have emotionally compelling reasons why you want those things. And it's really about the journey and getting there and learning to enjoy the process of getting there. Because once you get to a place where you have all those things that you want, you achieve all your goals, it's like you reach the top of the mountain and you look around and you realize, oh wow, holy shit, there's an even bigger mountain to climb. And as human beings, that we're always striving to be better. We're always striving to accomplish more, to achieve more, to become more. It's just our innate nature to expand beyond what we already are right now. And so I have a quote that I wrote that I want to share with you before, and I've got a couple other quotes I'm going to go through. A couple of them I've read before, but it's all about having standards for yourself and not settling, because settling and being mediocre, like most people in this world tend to be, if you're surrounded by people that's their standard and you have higher standards for yourself, it's really important that you're very clear, you're crystal clear as a bell on what it is that you want, because literally we are all surrounded by a sea of people, of mediocre people, or people that their standard is mediocrity, because the average human being that you're going to encounter in your daily life just kind of has a herd mentality. In other words, they're just doing what the majority of the people are doing. And when you're surrounded by those kinds of people and they see that you want something bigger and greater than what you are right now, number one, they're going to feel like they're losing you. And number two, in other words, they feel like they're going to lose you if you go and you succeed, you become this person that you want to become. And also, you literally are like a giant mirror, a reflection back to them of everything that they're not in their lives. And so that makes most people feel really uncomfortable, because the average person doesn't want to look at all the things that they're underachieving in their lives, whether it's taking care of their body or their health or their career or their business or the friends that they have in their lives, their peer group, or the people of the opposite sex that they date. And so they're going to try to tear you down. It's like misery loves company, as they say. People too weak to follow their own dreams are always going to find a way to discourage yours, because just the very fact that you're succeeding, people will often attack you or try to put you down, because it makes, if they can label you with a label that in essence disqualifies you or makes you irrelevant in their own minds, then they don't feel so uncomfortable with the fact that they're really not living a great life. They're not going for the things that they want. And so the quote that I wrote says, human beings are wired to succeed. We are wired to seek out and obtain the best for ourselves. Having the perfect life, career, body, friends, family, lovers, business, lifestyle, etc. is a process that is just as much about who we become or need to become along the journey of our lives as it is about having standards for ourselves and knowing what we want and why we want it. All great things take time. Sometimes the things we want will take decades to accomplish. Being mediocre or settling for a life that is less than what you are capable of living is simply giving up out of fear that it won't work out for you, or fear that you don't deserve to have what you want. Someday your time on this planet will be over. Give life your best shot and never give up on the things that make you smile. Living a life full of regrets is not where you want to end up when you get old. Knowing you did your best will always give you peace of mind and leave you feeling content no matter what happens. So I got another quote that I've shared a while ago. It was probably about a year ago, and it was from the movie Act of Valor, and it was a poem that Chief Tecumseh, I think I'm pronouncing that right, wrote. And it was at the very end of the movie. And what I liked about that movie is all the guys that were in it, all the SEAL operators, they were all actual active duty SEALs. And it says, so live your life that the fear of death can never enter your heart. Trouble no one about their religion. Respect others in their view and demand that they respect yours. Love your life. Perfect your life. Beautify all things in your life. Seek to make your life long and its purpose in the service of your people. Prepare a noble death song for the day when you go over the great divide. Always give a word or sign of salute when meeting or passing a friend, even a stranger when in a lonely place. Show respect to all people and grovel to none. When you arise in the morning, give thanks for the food and for the joy of living. If you see no reason for giving thanks, the fault lies only in yourself. Abuse no one and no thing, for abuse turns wise ones to fools and robs the spirit of its vision. When it comes your time to die, be not like those whose hearts are filled with the fear of death, so that when their time comes, they weep and pray for a little more time to live their lives over again in a different way. Sing your death song and die like a hero going home. I love that. And here's another one. This is actually from Marcus Luttrell's book, Lone Survivor. And this is where he's talking about standards and how guys that, especially guys that have high standards for themselves, focus on their weaknesses. They focus on trying to improve their weaknesses and grow beyond where they are. He says the real battle is won in the mind. It's won by guys who understand their area of weakness, who sit and think about it, plotting and planning to improve, attending to the detail. They work on their weaknesses and overcome them because they can. And one last quote that I want to share with you is from Nelson Mandela. He said, there is no passion to be found in playing small and settling for a life that is less than what you are capable of living. And so this guy whose email wrote in, he obviously has some questions about marriage, relationships. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago, and I learned this lesson the hard way. And it's like a lot of times people are just meaning like, well, what makes you qualified? It's like, well, I did a lot of fucking up in my relationships and in my life. So when you've made a lot of mistakes, you're taking a lot of action. When you're taking a lot of action, you're making a lot of mistakes, you're going to learn very quickly what works and what doesn't work. And one of the things that I learned is that, we talk about peer group, right? Like I was talking about earlier. Everybody when I was in my mid-20s was getting married. All my high school buddies were getting married. And it's like, so there's a lot of pressure. It's like people that are married or in relationships, they want everybody else to be in relationships because it makes them feel good about the decisions and the choices that they've made. Whether those decisions are good or bad really is irrelevant. It makes them, we want to feel good about the decisions that we're making and the choices that we're making, because it's like none of us really wants to admit to ourselves that we fucked up or we made a bad choice or we made a bad decision. And so for me, back at that point in my life when I was 24 or 25, I was filled, I can't believe it was almost 20 years ago, I was literally filled with fear, and fear that because deep down I knew that the relationship that I was in really needed to end. But I was really terrified and afraid that if I didn't marry my girlfriend at the time, and if I decided to end my relationship with her, that I would never find anybody that would love me as much as she did and would be as good to me as she was. But deep down, I really didn't feel like I was in a relationship with somebody that I had always been what I had wanted. Because up until that point in my life, every time I dated a woman that I was really into and I really felt like our goals and our values were aligned, I always fucked it up. Because I was insecure, I acted weak, I acted needy. I mean, I talk about that extensively in my book. And so I ended up settling and married this girl who was a great girl, but deep down I wasn't in love. And so I settled for a life of mediocrity because everybody else around me was doing the same fucking thing. And like when you look at it today, our divorce rate's over 65%. And so the odds of two people meeting and literally spending their whole entire lives together in a state of marital bliss, it's just not realistic. And there are people out there that have a great marriage and a great relationship, and they've been having a ball since they got together. But the reality is that is the exception to the rule. And since I got, one of the promises that I made to myself when I got out of my marriage was that I will never do this again unless I am 100% certain that I absolutely want to do this and I'm with the right person. I've come close with two different women since then who for quite a few years I thought this is definitely the person I'm going to marry and I'll probably spend the rest of my life with them. And I felt that. But deep down I knew that I needed to take time and I needed to wait and I needed to see things play out because I know what it's like to get a divorce. It ain't a lot of fucking fun. It's painful for both people and your families get intertwined. And it's not a pleasant experience, and plus it's expensive. And nobody likes paying an attorney thousands and thousands of dollars just to, in essence, argue back and forth over really minutia. Because attorneys, they get paid the more they work on your case. And so really it's not in their best interest to have you settle things quickly. That is simply the reality of things. It doesn't matter what an attorney tells you. Bottom line is they get paid by the hour. And the more hours they work on your case, guess what? The more money that they're going to make and the more money that they can bill you for. And so, like I said, I swore that I would never get into that kind of situation again. And I'm really thankful and I'm really grateful that I didn't just rush into another marriage and with both of those women, even though they were for quite a few years. I was certain that these are the women I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And over time, I realized that we grew apart. Our goals and our values were no longer aligned. And when you look at the majority of people, whether it's people in the public eye or just people that you know in your own life, I mean, the reality is how many couples do you know that have been together for several decades and are really happy? Even like one of my buddies who I went to high school with, and he has what I consider to be a really great marriage, and he really loves his wife and she loves him. But I can tell when I look into his eyes, he's not really happy. It's like he's just kind of punching the clock with what he does for a living. He's overweight. He fucking gets drunk pretty much every weekend. And he said to me several years ago, he says, I'm just a fucking drunk. And he definitely drinks too much. But that's kind of what he uses as a coping mechanism for the fact that he's simply not happy in his life. And so when I look at all the people that I went to high school with, most of them have been married and divorced. Some of them have been married and divorced several times. And it's like they, as soon as they get out of one relationship, they're already rushing into another one. It's like, what is the average? The average marriage tends to last 2 to 7 or 8 years. That tends to be the average. I mean, I talked to lots of clients that have been married 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years, and then they get a divorce. Every single one of them tells me that they knew after like 5 to 7 years that it should end. But they stayed in it for the kids, supposedly. And so think about it. Think about friendships. Think about people that kind of come and go in your life. Look at Especially like when you get to be my age or even older, it's like when you've been on the planet for several decades and you had several careers, you had several businesses, you had several companies that you worked for, and you move through life, you look at the group of people that you hung out with when you were younger, and as time goes by, people come and go in your life. You might have a handful of friends that are with you on the whole journey, but really, when you look at life as a whole, it's all about change. Nothing stays the same. People come and they go in your life. And like I was saying in the quote that I wrote earlier, it's all about really who you become in the journey. And so if you're striving to have a really great relationship, it might take you 2 or 3 great relationships or 2 or 3 women that you have experiences with that will teach you to become the person you need to become in order to really get to that place where you feel comfortable in your own skin and you feel comfortable enough to have a long-term relationship where your actually children are involved, or have a business that's successful. Maybe you go through 2 or 3 businesses, or like my business that I had with my business partners that I was in business with for almost 10 years, I had 2 or 3 instances in my 20s where I got involved with guys that were friends of mine and we were going to start a business or a company together, and I could tell that they just really weren't as committed to it as I was, and we didn't end up going forward with it. So there were several business relationships that I got involved in that just never went anywhere because I could tell they weren't as committed to it as I was. And that's where really, in any relationship that you have, whether it's a friendship or a career or a business relationship or an intimate relationship, you got to make sure that the person or people that you're entering into it with are just as committed to that as you are. And maybe, even if it's just for a year or two, that experience that you have with that person or a group of people, it teaches you a lot about yourself and teaches you a lot about relationships and life in general. Because really, life is about relationships. That's what, if you notice, if you've ever been to my website, it says life is relationships. It's at the top. It really is about that. Life really is about the relationships that you have with people in general. And so let's go ahead and move on to this guy's email. We're going to go through it. He says, "Hey, Coach, I just finished your book. I am at about the same age as you, and I don't have any kids. And I feel the internal pressure for kids because, number one, how old I will be when my kid grows to be 15 or 20 years old. He says, I'll basically be in my 60s. Like, I get it. I have one of my girlfriends I used to date. When I started dating her, her daughter was 5.5. She's going to be 19 this summer. That kind of fucking freaks me out a little bit. And I talked to her a few weeks, about a month ago, I guess I talked to her, and she's in college now, and it just, like I said, it fucking freaks me out, dude. But I definitely would like to have kids of my own someday, and I'm going to be 44 in about 3 days here at this point. And so say I have kids in the next 5 years. Say I have kids when I'm 50. That means I'll be 70 when my kids get to be adults. I mean, when you look at how science is progressing, and we're all looking on having an average life expectancy of over 100 years at this point, that's really not a big deal when you think about it. Like I said, it's really about the journey and it's about the relationships. But the way I look at it is that I've learned a lot about myself and I've learned a lot about life. And so I have a lot of wisdom. I can be a lot better parent at a guy in his 40s or 50s and 60s than I could have been if I'd have been a parent in my 20s. And that's a big reason why I didn't have kids when I was in my 20s, because I knew I would end up being just as bad a parent as my own parents were. And I didn't want to fuck my kids up in the same way that my parents fucked us up. And, one of the things I do believe in life is that we choose our own parents. So I couldn't be the person I am today without the gift of the experience that I have with my mom and my dad. Good, bad, it really doesn't fucking matter. But for me, because I have high standards for myself in every area of my life, I want to be a great parent. And I've had the opportunity to have that experience with women that I've dated and helping raise and be a father figure to their children. But someday when I definitely do have my own kids, I'll have a lot more life experience and a lot more wisdom. And that'll enable me to be a better teacher. And one of the things that Wayne Dyer says is that kids come through you, they don't come for you. And if you're smarter and you're wiser and you're more balanced and more level-headed human being, you're more financially stable and you're more financially secure, you're more peaceful, you're more relaxed in your life, you're going to have the time to spend with your kids versus if you're having children when you're in your 20s and you're stressed, you're worrying about money, and you're still trying to learn all these things you have to learn. So I look at it as it's a good fucking thing that you're waiting to have kids at a later point in your life. He says other dads are at 35 or in their 40s and they go play soccer with their children. At the age of 60, you're considered old. It's all about how you take care of yourself. There's a bodybuilder who's in his 90s and the dude looks like he's in his fucking 30s. It's all about how you take care of your body. And again, that boils down to having high standards for yourself. Having high standards, meaning you eat high quality alkaline foods and you work out and you take care of your body. Taking care of your body, your temple for your spirit, if you will, is a big part of being successful and happy and healthy in life. He says, my colleagues have children at 10 and 20. And when I go to social events like parties, when I meet new women or people in general, they ask me why I'm still single. You should have a good response. Well, it's by choice because I wanted to, when I finally got to the place where I have children, I want to feel like I can be a really great kick-ass parent. Because when I look around at people that had kids when they were a lot younger, they didn't have any life experience. So they really didn't have a lot of wisdom that they could impart onto their children. It's all about how you look at it. He says, number 3, I think some people have created a rumor that I am gay, and I want to prove to them that I am not. He says, so sometimes I try to speak about my past successes. The reason I'm 45-ish without kids was that I was struggling with depression, and always something that started out with a girl was about to finish in some months. He says, I had a tendency to solitude, and then I went to a psychologist who helped me out a lot. Again, like I said, it's really about, you say, well, why haven't I met this perfect person? Because you're on a journey that's helping you become the person you need to be. You need to get your shit handled first. You need to get your own issues handled first so you can be at a place, and I talk about this a lot, it's about not having another person complete you, but getting to a place where you're a complete person, you have a complete life. So you have somebody that you can share your completeness with. And it's okay. I mean, Cary Grant, he was literally in his 70s before he finally got to that place in his life where he really felt like he could be himself and he was comfortable in his own skin and have a really great relationship. And so the last years of his life were spent in relationship bliss, even though it took him his whole life perfecting who the person he was to get to that place. He says, now I'm thinking of dating, but it's so hard to find a woman to have kids with. You need 2 to 3 years, as you say, which means that I feel the pressure to succeed. Dude, you got to understand that everything that's happened in your life has happened for a reason, and it couldn't have happened any other way. You needed to get those life experiences that you had. You needed to go through that period of depression and going to a psychologist and all those things so you could get to a place where you became the man that you needed to become in order to be a great catch for a woman to have a great relationship with. That's why a lot of younger women like older guys. They like guys that have handled their shit and they've gotten their issues out of the way and they've got things handled in life. Because the reason being is for a lot of younger guys, they still got their issues to deal with. And again, that's why women... It's interesting because like when women are younger, and it's like usually when they hit to be like 25, 27, they start to and women mature faster than men anyways, they start to realize that guys their own age are just fucked up and they don't get it. Again, that's why a lot of women tend to marry and date older guys, because the older guys have dealt with their issues. They figured out their shit. And so they know how to treat a woman when they get a little older. And they can have a much better quality relationship, because when women eventually they get their heart stepped on enough times dating younger guys that don't have a fucking clue what they're doing, they start to realize the only guys that really get it tend to be guys that are a little bit older with a little bit of life experience. He says, I know that looks don't matter, but what if I don't find the girl that I consider good for family? Again, you got to look at it as a process. You have to become the person that you want to attract. And it's obvious from what you shared, you were never really in a place where you could attract the kind of person that you really wanted, because you still had work to do on yourself. Again, we all have our own individual journeys that we're on. life is really about a process of becoming who you really need to become. And when you get to that place, when you're content and you're peaceful and you're relaxed in your life, then the right people are going to show up exactly on time. And it's only really when you're able to look back in your life that you see how perfectly everyone and everything lined up and the circumstances came together in your life. He says, is it better not to have kids or to make a compromise and say, okay, I will have kids. Is it okay if I get divorced with her in the future? That's just settling. And I understand. It's like that's a fearful place that you're at. You're thinking, well, I look around all these other people having kids. Maybe there's something wrong with me. But your own journey is your own journey, dude. If you're not ready, you're not ready. And that's okay. You have to be okay. It's like you have to be okay with who you are. You can't live your life according to other people's expectations. He says, is it better to lower my standards? Well, I found that every time I settled in life, I always made myself miserable, whether it was for business partners or friendships or even intimate relationships or even careers. I was never fucking happy. And if you're a guy that has high standards for yourself, which if you're watching this video, you're obviously someone who has high standards for yourself, because people who have low standards would never have the time and the patience to watch a video like mine or to read a book like mine. He says, because as you say, is it better to be alone and constantly seek for the woman that is a 10 out of 10? But at my age, this might take 10 years or more. So what if it takes 10 years? You're 45. What if you live to be 100 years old and you spend the next decade of your life really getting to a place where you're kicking ass? You're kicking ass in your career. You're kicking ass in your business. You really become really great with women. Maybe you need to date 4 or 5 really awesome women before you get to a place where you can finally become the type of man you need to be in order to get that ideal, perfect woman for you. Again, your path is going to be different from my path and everybody else's path who's watching this video. He says, at the age of 56, that is too much. Again, that's just a belief. That's a rule. And again, that's a rule that you adopted from somebody else. He says, if I meet her at age 56 and we have kids at 58, then my kids are going to be 20 and I'll be 78, ready to die. Again, science is saying that we're 17, 18, 19 years away from being able to prolong human life indefinitely. So by the time you get to be 70, and they're already reversing aging in rats that they're doing DNA modification with. So by the time you get to that point, they'll have perfected the process. You'll be able to go, they'll take a little bit of blood, they'll do a little bit of modification, put some proteins back on there, re-inject it into you, and over the course of the next 30, 40, 60, 120 days, the aging process will literally reverse in you. It's not really going to fucking matter at that point. The key is you got to get to a place in your life where you love your life and you're okay with yourself and you're enjoying the process of your journey. And your journey is your journey. You should never try to compare yourself to anybody else because you don't know what they're thinking and feeling inside, and they don't know what you're truly thinking and feeling inside. He says, yes, I have goals in my life, a purpose, and I'm very happy with it. Awesome. That is like rule number 1 for men. You got to have a purpose and a mission in life that's emotionally compelling to you, that makes you feel alive. He says, I'm a stockbroker and I've always been successful in making money, and he says that's been an antidepressant for me. Well, think about it. When you're doing things that make you happy and make you feel alive, it releases serotonin into your body, and that's in essence what antidepressants are anyways. It causes the production of serotonin. In other words, happy self-medication, if you will. And so that's why I say the more you can spend your life doing things that you really love and you really enjoy and doing it with the kinds of people that you enjoy doing it with, the happier you're gonna feel, and the more serotonin that you're gonna produce naturally. The average person that's on antidepressants, they just look around their life and they go, oh my God, this totally fucking sucks. This is hopeless. But yet they don't have the courage to really do anything about it. So they go and they get a pill. And so they artificially cause their body to feel happy and in essence cover up for what they're not really feeling, which is that they're miserable. And you should be using what makes you unhappy in your life to drive you to succeed and improve in that area of your life. He says, I have many close friends and some of them are in my situation, but they're 5 to 10 years younger. So what? Who fucking cares? We sometimes go to prostitutes, luxury ones, but at some point we would like to know your idea or stance in this aspect. Hey man, I'm not here to be your judge. If whatever you're doing is working for you, hey, to each his own. So I don't really have an opinion on that one way or another. If it makes you happy, if it makes you feel good, fucking keep doing it. It's your life. It's your choice. And that's the beauty of being a divine sovereign being, is we're all here to have our own experience, to create our own masterpieces in life. And so if you'd like to get my help personally, helping to make your life a better life, improving your career, your business, your goals, your body, your dating, relationship, pickup skills, whatever area of your life that you want to improve on, go ahead and go to my website right now. Click the products tab at the top of your screen on any page of my website and just follow the instructions for booking phone, Skype, or email coaching. And I will talk to you soon.